Hi guys, it's me Chazza HD and welcome to this Azerbaijan Grand Prix 2021 preview for, of course, this weekend's Grand Prix on the streets or in the streets of Baku. Hopefully you guys are doing well after, of course, it's been about a 10-day break. 10-day break since the last video here on the channel, which of course was the race review for the Monaco Grand Prix, which, by the way, after the stream finishes, if you do want to check out, I guess, the final thoughts from Monaco from me and my analysis, then make sure to check that out. It's in the description down below. But yeah, been a 10-day break since that Grand Prix. Not much really has happened news-wise in the F1 world. And really, going into this Grand Prix, it's as it was in terms of, again, news and momentum, as we expected, coming into this Grand Prix weekend. Hopefully you guys are doing well on what is a very hot and muggy Thursday night here in the UK for me. And yeah, hopefully tonight you will preview the Grand Prix this weekend and give your thoughts as to who you expect to be right up there and who do you expect in the end to come out on top at the end of it all. Of course, this man on screen, the new championship leader, Max Verstappen, who is leading the championship for the first time in his career, looking the favourite for sure coming into this Grand Prix. I don't think, though, it's a guaranteed win, because still, it's going to be very close, but he's definitely the favourite after what happened in Monaco and the form he's been in the last couple races, and really, I'd say for the majority of the season so far, he's been in pretty fine form. But before we get into the teams and previewing, you know, how I think they'll do this weekend and what they need from this weekend's Grand Prix in terms of a result, let's first get into the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship. So, of course, Max Verstappen is leading by 4 points from Lewis Hamilton. Again, this is the first time in Verstappen's career he has led the Drivers' Championship. Will he, at the very end of it all, be leading it and win it? We'll see. Very long way away, of course, the last Grand Prix in Abu Dhabi, the 12th of December. So, again, a long way away. And to be honest, it doesn't really matter at the moment who is leading it now, because I'm sure it will change plenty of times during the course of the season. Lewis Hamilton second, Lando Norris in third, Valtteri Bottas is fourth, and then you've got Sergio Perez fifth, Leclerc sixth, and then Sainz, Ricciardo, Gasly, and Esteban Ocon in 10th place. And just in 11th place, behind Ocon, is Sebastian Vettel, who, of course, scored 10 very important points for the Aston Martin team in Monaco. And then in the Constructors, Red Bull take the lead of the Constructors Championship for the first time this season. And I think that is the first time Red Bull have led the Constructors Championship since 2013, when, of course, that season, they won it and dominated with Sebastian Vettel. So, a good omen for the Red Bull team going forward. But they only do lead by 1 point from Mercedes, who are still looking very strong for this season. McLaren third, only 2 points ahead of Ferrari. Of course, McLaren 80 points, Ferrari on 78. Aston Martin now up to fifth after that great result in Monaco. Only a point ahead of AlphaTauri, who are only a point ahead of Alpine in that great battle. The fifth place between those three teams. And of course, Alfa Romeo are eighth. They scored a point in Monaco, but they're just so far behind points-wise on the three teams above them that Alfa Romeo are going to finish in eighth place unless Williams can have an amazing Grand Prix where they get a good points finish and, you know, say a few points to their name. Then, of course, Williams ninth and Haas in 10th position. But let's now get into the world champions, Mercedes, who, of course, the last time they raced here in Baku, Mercedes had a very dominant weekend, a 1-2 in qualifying and a 1-2 in the race. Lewis Hamilton very nearly won the Grand Prix. He was very close to passing Valtteri Bottas at the end of the Grand Prix. Had DRS on him. I remember Valtteri Bottas got quite lucky, actually. I think he encountered traffic just at the right time to give him DRS down that pit straight to avoid Lewis Hamilton coming at him. So a bit lucky there was Valtteri Bottas, but he did drive very finely that weekend, and Lewis Hamilton was, of course, pretty good, as he normally is. in any Grand Prix. Very rare that Lewis Hamilton puts in a poor performance. I'd say probably Monaco, the last Grand Prix, was probably the first one he's had in a few years at least. But yeah, Mercedes very dominant at that Grand Prix, but compared to then, I think they find themselves in a very different position coming into this Grand Prix, because I mean, at the time of that Grand Prix, they had 3 1-2 finishes in a row. The first 3 races of that season just before that race, which of course back then was the 4th race of the season. The car was a lot better compared to the rest of the competition. It was clearly the best car on the grid. This year, they don't have that. I mean, at certain tracks, they do have probably just about the better car than everyone else, but it's not a clear advantage, let's say, that they have over everyone else. And I think, considering what happened in Monaco, I think Mercedes are definitely on the back foot for this Grand Prix this weekend. I think you have to say that Max Verstappen and Red Bull are the favourites. I think the track layout does suit the Red Bull car and Red Bull Honda package especially for this track layout. And I think Mercedes, they're still going to be right up there. They're going to be close enough to get pole position and close enough to fight for victory. But again, Red Bull and Max Verstappen, they are going to be the favourites. And even Sergio Perez, I expect to be right up there, because Perez has such a good record around this track. He's had 2 podiums in, the 4 Grand Prix we've had here in Baku. So they're pretty formidable looking this weekend at Red Bull. I mean, of course, Mercedes are the champions, and they've been champions for a long time, and they've done absolutely everything possible in Formula 1. So they're not going to feel under pressure because, they've been here and done it and got the t-shirt. But I think they know for this season, things are going to be very close in the championship all season long between Hamilton and Verstappen and Mercedes and Red Bull and the constructors as well. So there is definitely, I think, a need for them to bounce back. Will they be able to bounce back? It's hard. It's hard for me to see them actually doing it in terms of winning the race, because that would be, wouldn't it, bouncing back? I mean, the only other way I could see possibly someone saying that they bounced back well is if Max Verstappen has a poor race and, doesn't even finish the race, and Hamilton finishes 2nd or 3rd, then at least, the points would swing back in Hamilton's and Mercedes' favour. But again, considering what happened in Monaco and considering the track layout, I just think Mercedes will be on the back foot this weekend. Lewis Hamilton is not great around Baku. I also have to add that. He has, of course, won this Grand Prix in 2018, even though that race, I think he even admitted at the time he didn't deserve to win the race and he wasn't actually that good in the Grand Prix. He made, I think, quite a big mistake at turn 1 and then capitalised on a lock-up from Sebastian Vettel and his teammate getting a puncture. So, I wouldn't say Lewis Hamilton is guaranteed to even be ahead of his teammate this weekend. I mean, of course, in Monaco, he was miles behind Valtteri Bottas in qualifying, which, of course, led to Hamilton's poor race result. But yeah, I think Hamilton... It's hard for me to say absolutely where I expect Hamilton to be this weekend, but I do think there is a real possibility he could end up getting beaten by his teammate Valtteri Bottas. So I'm thinking 2nd or 3rd for Lewis Hamilton. And again, when it comes to Red Bull and Max Verstappen, I do think that Verstappen and Red Bull are the favourites and are the front runners for this Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas, with him, it will be interesting to see what he can do, because we know he does have the potential around this circuit to perform well, because we've seen it in the last couple times here in Baku. He just needs to show it. As long as he shows it, he might actually be able to cause some trouble for whoever is, up on pole position, if he indeed is not on pole position. I'm still expecting it to be very close in qualifying between Verstappen, Perez, Bottas, Hamilton. But for Lewis Hamilton, it's not going to be a comfortable weekend at all. Again, I don't think Mercedes will have the stronger car, and I think he'll have quite a challenge even to finish ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas in the end. And again, those Red Bulls are going to be pretty darn quick. Talking of Red Bull, let's now go on to them. Yeah, Monaco, of course, great race result. I think 38 points it was from that Grand Prix. Now leading both championships is looking great for Red Bull. But as I said a few minutes ago, we're so long away from the end of the season. Again, we're It's another 6 months, or just over 6 months away from the end of the season. It doesn't really matter that much now, what Red Bull or what position they are in. I mean, of course, they want to stay close enough to still be in the battle at the moment, but you don't win a championship after 5 races, the first 5 races in a season. So it'll be interesting to see what Red Bull now do. Now the pressure is really on them, now that they are the leaders in both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship. But again, Max Verstappen and Red Bull and Sergio Perez as well, I think they are definitely the favourites for victory and, of course, absolute success this weekend. As long as Verstappen doesn't make a mistake, I think Verstappen wins this Grand Prix because he just looks better. He looks stronger. He looks more consistent right now than he did a few races ago. I think he's been driving, in the last couple races especially, I think he's actually been driving a tad better than Lewis Hamilton and has really been putting in some quite stunning performances. Because even though the Red Bull car's good this season, it's not, miles better than anything else. It's still close enough with other cars to mean that Max Verstappen has got to make the difference for, him to get the results he's got so far this season. So, yeah, I think Verstappen definitely the favourite to win this weekend, and I would be surprised if Max Verstappen did not win. I'd be very surprised if Max Verstappen did not win, because if you look at his single lap speed at the minute, it's very, very strong. And as long as in the race he can maintain the lead on the first lap, I just don't see how Max Verstappen can really be stopped at this Grand Prix. And I think even better for Max Verstappen is that not only will the car be strong, but Sergio Perez, again, is so strong around this circuit. 2 podiums in 4 races here, the only 4 races we've done in Baku, that if Max does win the race, which I think he will, Perez might be able, this Grand Prix, like he did in Monaco, to take away points from Lewis Hamilton, which is exactly what Max Verstappen needs from his teammate Sergio Perez if Verstappen is going to win the Drivers' World Championship. So, be interesting to see what Perez does. I think Perez will be definitely on the podium in Baku. I'd be very surprised if he finished 4th or 5th. I'd be very, very surprised by that. Because, again, he's so strong here. The Red Bull car's looking very good at the moment. So, I think this is another big weekend for Red Bull. And I think, as I said, coming away from Monaco, because I think their car will be better suited here, and because the drivers are driving well, and they're in very good form, they've got to build on what they, the momentum they gained in Monaco, because, Verstappen leading by 4 points, if Sergio Perez can finish up there and take some points away from Lewis Hamilton, then you could see Max Verstappen coming away from this Grand Prix with a, 12 or 14 point lead, which, I mean, it's not, that even if he has that lead coming away from this race, it doesn't make it a clear advantage towards Max Verstappen in terms of winning the championship, but it is a nice buffer to have at this point of the season if they do come away from this Grand Prix with that for Max in the Drivers' Championship. But yeah, definitely, without doubt for me, the front runners are Verstappen, Red Bull. Be very surprised if they were, say, in the position where I expect Mercedes to be. I'd be very surprised if those roles were reversed. Another point I want to make, though, that I remembered that I was going to make before the stream started, and I'm trying to make it now, go back to Mercedes with this. The way the season has started is very similar to 2017 and the championship battle of then, where Hamilton and Vettel were very close. The two cars were very close in performance. And after, if you remember back to 2017, after the Monaco Grand Prix, Vettel was looking great, was leading the championship by, I think, even a bigger margin than Verstappen was. I think it was like 30 points or something like that. And Hamilton had a poor race in Monaco that year, finished down in 7th place, which is the same position he finished, a couple weeks ago. And it was all looking as though the ascendancy, I guess you could say, was with Vettel and Ferrari. But if you look back to 2017, after that race in Monaco, except for, I think, the race in Baku, where, of course, we had that, what I think was quite disgraceful incident, and quite appalling incident of Sebastian Vettel deliberately hitting Lewis Hamilton and somehow still finishing ahead of him in the Grand Prix. And then the race, I think, after that in Austria, where Vettel finished in second, Hamilton fourth, because Hamilton had a gearbox penalty. If you look again, after that race in Monaco in 2017, except for those two races I've just mentioned, Hamilton was, in terms of the results he got compared to Sebastian Vettel, I think as well the Hungarian Grand Prix was another race where Vettel had a great time of it. But except for those three races, Hamilton really took charge of the World Championship. The reason I want to make this point is I'm very interested to see if that does happen again, where after a very similar Grand Prix weekend to that one in Monaco, whether Hamilton and Mercedes will now just take charge of this World Championship and just get the lead back and run away with it, which is what Hamilton and Mercedes did after that race in Monaco. They eventually got the lead of the championship back around, I think, the Italian Grand Prix, and then after that, and after the Vettel crash with his teammate and Verstappen in Singapore, Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton didn't look back. So, again, I am interested to see if Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes can replicate that. Honestly, I would say it's probably going to be harder to do that this season, because I think the Verstappen Red Bull package is stronger than the Vettel Ferrari one. I think it's mentally stronger, the Verstappen Red Bull package, and also I think the Red Bull car itself is stronger than the Ferrari was that season, because the Ferrari, even though aerodynamically it was very good, it lacked the power necessary once we got later in the season to some power tracks to really compete with Hamilton and Mercedes for race victories. And I think Red Bull have a car that's a lot more equally good in those areas, rather than just being a lot better on, say, the power stakes compared to the aerodynamic stakes. So, yeah, but I just want to make that point, because, again, I think it'd be very interesting to see if that happens again. I don't think it will, but I think it's something to look out for. To be honest, if Max Verstappen and Red Bull, if they keep up this good form and they get out of the car with the tracks coming up and the way the layouts are and how it should suit the Red Bull car, if they get out of the car what they should, then Verstappen and Red Bull should be leading the championship going into the summer break by 20, about 20 to 30 points. Not a massive gap, because I do think Hamilton will have a couple races where he probably wins and, strikes back and pegs Verstappen's lead a bit. But again, with the races coming up between now and the summer break, I'd be very surprised if Max Verstappen and Red Bull were not leading the championship by, again, 20 to 30 points. And we'll see how it evolves, and we'll see what happens this weekend. Of course, Baku is a very challenging racetrack, very easy to have an accident. We've seen, Charles Leclerc the last time we raced here, looked as though he was going to get pole and win the race and threw it away. It can happen very easily here. And it can really have a massive effect on seasons, championships, I'm sure. So we'll see what happens between those two teams this weekend. And before I come to you guys in the chat, just going to get into the top two midfield teams first. So McLaren, I think McLaren, honestly, Monaco, I don't think they were expecting it to be as good as it was, getting a podium. I didn't think McLaren honestly would be that close at all to a podium finish. I thought that'd be mainly Mercedes, Red Bull, and maybe Ferrari up there for the podium. But it was a tremendous result. It was a result they desperately needed to keep ahead of Ferrari in the Constructors Championship. And coming to this Grand Prix, they should have a car strong enough to finish up in 5th or 6th place. I think, though, because of the competition they're going to have this weekend, it's going to be a very tough race for McLaren, very tough Grand Prix. I mean, this season so far, they've proven to be very good in the races and have scored plenty of points, very important points for McLaren, again, in the Constructors' Championship. But again, with the quality of drivers that they're going to be going up against this weekend, such as Leclerc, Sainz, Gasly, probably Sebastian Vettel and Lance Stroll, if I was to guess, because Aston Martin, who of course previously were racing Point and Force India, have always been dark horses around this circuit. So I think we can't count them out for a good result, just like in Monaco. But I think McLaren, again, they'll have the car. It's just, will the drivers be able to show up and put in the performance necessary for McLaren to have yet another very good result? I think Norris will probably be fine. He seems in great form and a great headspace, so I don't really see Lando Norris having a poor weekend unless he makes, say, a mistake in qualifying that leads to him starting in a lower down position, say a crash. For Daniel Ricciardo, though, I just don't see Ricciardo up there this weekend. I think, honestly, he'll do well to get in the points. Because, again, I expect AlphaTauri to be quick, Ferrari to be quick, and Aston Martin to be quick, and who knows what Alpine will do. So, yeah, Daniel Ricciardo, I think, will struggle to get into the points. I mean, the last time we raced here in Baku, he wasn't that strong either. And if you actually look at Daniel Ricciardo's history in Baku, I mean, of course, he did win here in 2017. There were lots of circumstances around that win, but his actual pace since he left Red Bull, at that Grand Prix in 2019, it wasn't very strong, and even in 2018, I mean, he was quicker than Max Verstappen, I think, in that race, but it wasn't anything stunning. We've never seen really stunning speed from Daniel Ricciardo, or a stunning lap, I guess you would say, from Daniel Ricciardo really around this circuit. Maybe 2016, you could say, where he qualified, or he started second, but qualified third, because it was Sergio Perez who qualified second in 2016, the first edition of the Baku Grand Prix. But Ricciardo, this has not been a track where it's been like a guaranteed good result for him. We were thinking in Monaco it would be the case, because again, Monaco has been historically so good for him in terms of speed and results, but it just wasn't to be. And here in Baku, again, it's not been as great, say, consistently as people would think. He's only, I'm trying to think how many, I think he finished in the points in 2016, of course, won in 2017, and in 2018 and 2019, didn't even finish the Grand Prix. So, yeah, not great history for Ricciardo here in Baku. And again, considering the competition here in Baku this weekend, I think a points finish for him will be good enough. Say 9th or 10th. I think that'd be a decent result. Because again, the two Ferraris, Gasly, Vettel, Stroll, going to be very strong. And of course, his teammate should be ahead of him for this Grand Prix weekend, because it doesn't really look as though Daniel Ricciardo is getting on top of the car at the moment. But we do hope he does soon. And I reckon he will do soon. Just got to give him some time on that. And quickly for Ferrari, before I come to you guys in the chat, of course in Monaco they were great, very tight and twisty street circuit. It was always going to suit their car. Charles Leclerc did very well with his lap to get pole position in qualifying. Ended up, though, not starting because of his crash, and it was confirmed that the reason he had his problem, the drive shaft problem, was because of the crash in qualifying. So his mistake, his fault, I'm afraid, I have to say. And yeah, that's why Charles Leclerc didn't get what was looking to be as long as he got the start right, I think that would have been a race victory for him because his pace was very strong all weekend, but it wasn't to be. And of course, Carlos Sainz ended up finishing in second position. Now, this weekend, I've always said, coming out of Monaco, they're not going to be as strong here as they will be in Monaco for obvious reasons, because in the third sector, it's full throttle basically the entire way, or I think it literally is the entire third sector is full throttle. Then the first sector is the end of the very long pit straight, a couple corners, and then a DRS straight. And of course, Ferrari still are weak on power levels compared to, say, the Mercedes-powered teams and the Honda-powered teams. So that's why AlphaTauri and McLaren and Aston Martin are going to be right with them this weekend. But because of their drivers and how well they are driving and have been driving here at Baku, since they've, raced here in Baku in the last 2 or 3 years. And considering as well the middle sector and its similarities to Monaco in terms of the tight, twisty sections, especially around the castle section, they're not going to be, their drop-off, because obviously they're not going to be up there with Mercedes and Red Bull, they're not going to drop off absolutely massively. They're not going to be, 9th or 10th on the grid. I don't see that happening. I still think you're going to get, say, one of the Ferraris up in, say, 6th or 7th on the grid, say Charles Leclerc, for example. And then Carlos Sainz, I'm sure, will be in there some ways. Had a couple good results here in Baku. So they're still going to be pretty good, Ferrari. And they still could come away from this Grand Prix with third in the Constructors, because with both cars, they should get a pretty strong points haul for their team. But just don't expect them to be up there with Mercedes or Red Bull, or even ahead of the rest of the midfield, because the layout of this track, especially in the first and third sector, really does hamper them quite a bit for, of course, the Ferrari team. But like I said, I think Leclerc's going to be up there in, say, 5th, 6th, 7th. Carlos Sainz will probably be just behind him, say 8th, 9th, around there, probably. But definitely Ferrari going to be in the points, going to be very strong still, and them and McLaren still going to be in a pretty close fight when it is all said and done come Sunday. So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to seeing the battle between McLaren and Ferrari, and we'll get into it in a moment. Aston Martin and AlphaTauri, who I also expect to be right up there with these two teams. But I'll come to you guys in the chat to ask, what out of the top 4 teams that I've just talked about, how do you see those teams getting on? Let me know in the live chat below or to the side of the stream, and also let me know in the comment section down below. Just want to say though, before I read your comments out, that don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, because I will be live for practice 3, qualifying, and the race, and be doing a race review on Monday evening, and of course a qualifying watch along on Saturday afternoon, and a race watch along on Sunday afternoon. So don't forget to subscribe for that content. Bottom right of the screen, you can subscribe right there, or go to my homepage and do it there, and hit the notifications bell as well. Don't forget to smash this like button and share this stream and channel everywhere you can. Let me now just read out some comments before we get into the rest of the teams. Will F1 says Ricciardo will be fine, I think, but he does need to beat Norris, considering Sainz beat Norris over their 2 seasons together. I think with Ricciardo, like I said, second half of the season, he should improve a bit. But I think ultimately, with the way the season is going, I do think Lando Norris is probably going to end up beating Ricciardo quite comfortably in the Drivers' Championship. So I think we might need to look at, in terms of Ricciardo doing well for McLaren, properly well, we might need to look at next season for that. Because we saw at Renault, in his first season, I'd say 60% of the time, he was very good. There was plenty of races though where Hülkenberg was right there with him, if not ahead of him. But then in his second season, Ricciardo was stunning. He was the Daniel Ricciardo we know. So I mean, and we saw this with Toro Rosso as well. In his first season, I mean, he was decent. He wasn't great in Toro Rosso in his first season. But then in his second season, he was just incredible. So I think with Ricciardo, we hope and expect improvement in the second half of the season. But ultimately, given how the season's gone so far and given what he's like, Ricciardo, it's probably going to be next season where Ricciardo shows us his proper skill and ability in that McLaren car. Let me find some other comments here quick. Crystal Racing saying, I'm praying Merc have to change something on their car in the second half of this year because of a surprise rule infringement. We'll see. Oh, by the way, great to see Cranky Yankee Motorsport. Great to see you in the chat. I haven't talked to you in a while. Saying Hamilton was ungodly post-Spa. He's a closer. That's an American term for being very good at finishing a season or finishing a race or a match or whatever you want to call it. They did solve the tyre window issue, but they do slow drip upgrades. Tokens might complicate. I think definitely with next season, I will say this with all the tokens and upgrades and all of that, it's difficult to say how the season is going to end in terms of who's going to have the better car towards those final few races, the final stretch of the season, because of next season and how important it is. And also with the new system of you can only develop your car so much based on championship position from the year before, it's not, it's going to complicate things, because normally, if this was a normal season that we had a couple years ago, then I would say that because Red Bull developed their car probably the best out of any team over the course of a season, I would say that Red Bull would end up at the end of the season with a clear best car compared to anybody else. I mean, Mercedes, of course, would still be up there, but again, because of the way Red Bull normally develop their car over a season, I think Red Bull would end up, if this was a normal season, or a season a couple years ago, so we had this situation, then I think Red Bull and Verstappen would be looking very good for the championship with a much improved car towards the end of the season. But again, because of the tokens and all of that, it's difficult to say, because I mean, Red Bull, in theory, they do have more time to develop their car with the championship position thing, but not much more. And I think Red Bull, I mean, if by August, I'm sure Red Bull, Mercedes, and even Ferrari will be going full concentration on next year's cars. So, be interesting to see how this season develops. And I think, going back to 2017, I mean, Mercedes clearly developed better than Ferrari did, and I think that's one big reason why Ferrari in 2017 and 2018 failed to win the championship, is they could not develop their car over a season to compete. Started both seasons with a very good car, and a car that was probably a tad better than the Mercedes. I think even in 2018, I think Ferrari for the first 3 quarters of the season had the better car, but the upgrades towards the final few races just never worked. And Mercedes just kept rolling, their upgrades kept working, and they didn't look back. So we'll see what happens. Right, let's find a couple more comments, and then we'll get on to the rest of the teams. Baku is a track that Lance Stroll likes a lot, says Crystal Racing. That is absolutely the case, and we'll get into that in a moment. Francisco says that he's surprised that I think Red Bull has the edge over Mercedes this weekend. The reason I think that is because Baku, at the end of the day, I mean, of course, the middle sector is very important, but because of the first and third sector, Baku is a power track. If you're lacking in power, and just, if you have a car that's too draggy, you're not going to have a good day or a good weekend rather, in Baku, because it's going to cost you a lot. And of course, yeah, you can get a slipstream off another car and that will help. But it's, you know, it's papering over the cracks, really. And Red Bull, if you look at, say, from Bahrain, the speed traps where Honda power was stronger than Mercedes power in Bahrain. I mean, of course, it could be different this weekend, and I am allowing for that to happen. If Mercedes end up being quicker than Red Bull, and then the speed traps show that Mercedes powered teams were faster, then of course I'll change my opinion based on new evidence, which everyone should do. But based on the last power track we went to, which was Bahrain, Red Bull were quicker, and the Honda powered teams were at their strongest at those, or at that track. That's why I say that, you know, that this weekend I think Red Bull are going to be very strong. And again, because of momentum, Max Verstappen and Perez driving very well and both having pretty good, I would say, performances around here. So, yeah, I think Red Bull does have the edge. Doesn't mean they'll win, though, because we've seen with Baku, anything can happen. All it takes is Verstappen in qualifying, saying Q3, putting it in the wall, and then he ends up starting 10th. Then there you go. Lewis Hamilton gets the championship lead back at the end of the Grand Prix weekend, just like that. It can change very quickly. It's not a done deal. It's not like Monaco where, well, not even about Monaco. It's not like, say, I'm just trying to think, say a racetrack where it's very open and if you make a mistake, you don't really get punished for it. Say like not like a Russia, but like say an Abu Dhabi. I mean, of course, the end of the lap can be a bit tight, but because of the way this circuit is and the races we've had around here, again, you can't deny that there is a definite possibility of chaos, of a surprise result. So even though I think it's going to be Verstappen and Red Bull at the 4, doesn't mean that's going to happen. We could end up with a mental result on Sunday. Could end up with Lando Norris winning the race because of a couple safety cars and a couple of the top cars fall out of the race because of a crash. I mean, look at 2017. Look how many cars, you know, had trouble then. I mean, basically all of the top cars except Daniel Ricciardo in the race had an issue, whether it was damage or a penalty or a retirement or whatever. So, yeah, Red Bull, I'd say at the moment, again, I think they do have the advantage, but, or coming into this weekend, but, you know, just like that, it can change around, and we'll see, of course, this weekend. Now let's get on to the rest of the midfield teams. First off, Aston Martin, like Crystal Racing was saying in the chat, Lance Stroll, very good around this circuit. Sebastian Vettel also has proven to be, I won't say great around Baku, but he's had some good results here, so I think you could still say he's pretty good here in Baku. Aston Martin, of course, when they were racing Point and Force India previously, always been very strong here, so, you know, coming from Monaco and the great result they had, I'd be very surprised if Aston Martin were not getting into the points here. I'd be very, very surprised. I think it will be tough, though, because of how close it is in that midfield pack towards the front. And because of how, say, you know, the quality of drivers is so good at the front there, you know, or the front of the midfield, you know, Leclerc, Sainz, Ricciardo, Norris, Gasly. I mean, the quality, again, is so, so good. Even if they do have a good car, they still need to put in absolutely everything they have into it this weekend to absolutely make sure they are in contention. That's just how tough and brutal that midfield pack of, well, that midfield pack in general is this season, and I think we all love it for that reason. I'd say, honestly, coming into this Grand Prix, I think Sebastian Vettel is probably going to lead the way for Aston Martin. Sebastian looks as though he's, you know, started to really get on top of the car. I mean, Lance Stroll, I'm sure, will be in the fight for points. I'm not sure he'll be the quicker Aston Martin. Because even though he has had good results here, he's not really been, in terms of speed, great compared to his teammates. So I don't think necessarily Stroll is going to outqualify Vettel and just completely outrace him. But with Sebastian Vettel first, I think we could definitely see now, and I said this about, was it 2.5 months ago, I said around Monaco or even Baku, Sebastian Vettel will start to get on top of the car and will start to score points, and it will look a lot more like the old Sebastian Vettel, and it looks exactly like that now. All it needed, and I said it at the time as well, is him to just get that consistency going, more laps in the car, because of course preseason testing and most, I'd say, of the first weekend in Bahrain, he couldn't get that going at all because of constant little hitches here and there. So I'd say since Imola, where he's not really had an issue, he's been able to get the laps in, get confidence going, get consistency going, and that's all he has needed. The pace is there with Sebastian. He has the speed, without doubt, has the talent, has it all. He just needed that run of lap after lap after lap and not having reliability issues and all of that were happening again in Bahrain in testing and the first Grand Prix. And you've seen, since Imola, Sebastian Vettel has just progressively got better. Imola was a better weekend, still not great. Portugal, of course, he got into the top 10 in qualifying. Didn't get a point, really, because the car just wasn't good enough for it. Spain, he was right up there with his teammate. Maybe wasn't as great as we were hoping for, but I think was still pretty good considering the performance of the car compared to the rest. And then in Monaco, he was so good, so good, qualifying 8th and finishing in 5th. Again, great performance by Sebastian Vettel. And really, I think that will kickstart not only his season, but Aston Martin's season as well. And I do expect Sebastian Vettel to finish in the points this weekend. I don't think it'll be 5th or 6th. I think it's more likely going to be 8th, maybe 7th at the absolute best. But I'd be very surprised, put it that way, if Sebastian Vettel was not in the points this weekend. And I'm sure Lance Stroll will be in there somewhere. At worst, it'll be P11, P12, but I think Aston Martin definitely scored points this weekend, and I think Sebastian Vettel definitely finishes in the top 8, which would be another good result for him. In what is now, I guess, for Aston Martin, you'd have to say, because McLaren and Ferrari are so far ahead in 3rd and 4th, Aston Martin's aim has got to be to finish in 5th in the Constructors, which wouldn't be that bad of a season. I know this season they were hoping to get 3rd, which I know they strongly feel they should have got last season had it not been for mistakes or reliability problems and all of that. But at the end of the day, they're not as big as McLaren or Ferrari, so they shouldn't expect to be right up there, straight away first season as Aston Martin. And really, next season and what happens after that is the priority. If they still finish 5th in the Constructors this season, that's still a good season. Especially when you look at what this team was before Aston Martin. Still a very good season, so I don't think they should be disappointed that they're currently in 5th in the Constructors. And I still think they can have pretty good results going forward for the rest of the season. Will it be podiums? Will it be a race win, which of course they got last season, which was down to good fortune, let's be honest? No, but I don't see why they still can't have a good season. So we'll see, of course, what they do this weekend for the rest of the season. But I still think Aston Martin looking pretty good for the rest of the season. Still good for a top 5 finish in the Constructors. Next up, AlphaTauri. Like I said, I think the Honda-powered teams this weekend are going to be very strong. Pierre Gasly, historically, here in Baku, has been pretty good. 2018, I think he scored points, or he was very close to scoring points. I do remember he had a great start, and he was running in the points for quite a while in that race. So I think he is definitely one to watch out for. And also 2019, started from the back, got his way up to 6th place in the Red Bull, and then, sadly for him, retired from the Grand Prix. So Gasly's definitely strong around this circuit, and I think we'll definitely see a great performance this weekend by Pierre. I don't know exactly where he'll be, but he'll be, I think, right up there with the McLarens and the Ferraris in qualifying. Will he come through in the race and get the result? We'll have to see. I mean, AlphaTauri have not been great this season at getting the result in the race that they really look as though they should have been getting. I mean, they've had, 3 top 5 starting positions in the first 5 races this season, and they're down in 6th in the Constructors, which is pretty remarkable, to be honest. But I think as long as Gasly can qualify top 6 or 7, maybe 8th at worst, I still think he should be in there, scoring something for the team. And like I said, because of McLaren and Ferrari being so far ahead, AlphaTauri, I think, and Aston Martin and Alpine, their aim has got to be 5th in the Constructors this season. Also, I do hope that Yuki Tsunoda can have a better weekend. I think he will have a better weekend because I think the AlphaTauri car will be stronger than it has been in the last few races, but I don't see a points finish, to be honest. I just don't think he's quite there yet. Maybe 12th or 13th in the race I could see him finishing, but definitely not a points finish for him. For Alpine, I'm afraid because of the such fast Sector 3 and Sector 1, as I've said before, and their weakness in, say, power-dominant areas of certain circuits, I think Alpine are going to struggle this weekend. For Ocon, I think he's probably going to be the leading driver there at Alpine. Fernando Alonso, I think, if we do get a race which has a lot of overtaking and it's very close in the midfield pack and maybe some chaos and some safety cars and all of that, I do think Fernando Alonso can end up scoring points because I think he has the knack and the mental strength and consistency to hang in there and get a points finish for the team. But in terms of pure pace, I just don't see Alpine being right there with, again, Ferrari, McLaren, AlphaTauri, Aston Martin. I just don't see it at all. And I think they are going to have a struggle. I think their home Grand Prix in a couple of weeks' time, that'll be a Grand Prix that they should be looking at as a target of, getting some big points for them, again, in their battle for 5th in the Constructors. But this weekend, most likely, again, it's going to be them fighting with, say, Alfa Romeo and maybe an Aston Martin and an AlphaTauri outside of the points. I'd be very surprised if one of the Alpines scored serious points. Same for Alfa Romeo. I just don't really see where Alfa Romeo are really going to be anywhere near the points. I mean, Kimi Räikkönen, I think in the race he might be decent, Räikkönen. I mean, he's not had a great record, to be honest, here in Baku. Finished 2nd, of course, in the race in 2018, but made a big mistake in qualifying that time. 2017, he did out-qualify Vettel, but his race was therefore ended by his fellow Finn. And then 2016 and 2019, he was not that great, to be honest. So, yeah, I think Räikkönen will probably end up having, at best, a decent result and having a decent drive. And for Giovinazzi, yeah, kind of the same. I just don't see Alfa Romeo being anywhere near the points at all because of the lack of speed that they have in a straight line compared to the others, which will be a massive detriment. The only hope for them is a load of retirements and problems for other teams. And the final team we'll cover is Williams. George Russell does have a chance of points this weekend if he can put in a great lap in qualifying. He was in 2018 in the F2 race here. He was very, very good. So he is good here. He has the speed. Just needs to make sure in qualifying, like he normally does, that he can nail it because he might actually cause a surprise in there. But again, in the race, if we get safety cars and some havoc, look out for Russell because he might finally score points in the Williams. I know, of course, he scored points in the Mercedes, but I mean, he should have won the race, shouldn't he? That Sakir Grand Prix. So it wasn't really an accomplishment at the time and in the context of the Grand Prix. But hopefully, finally, he can, if that type of race does occur, he can get up there and actually get the Williams car into the points for the first time since Hockenheim 2019. Of course, though, that was Kubica who scored points on that occasion. But yeah, I think Russell definitely is going to be, if there are some retirements, I think Russell, if he doesn't get points, he'll be very, very close. Might be P11, to be honest, at the end of it all. But we'll see what you can do. And of course, Haas F1 are going to be causing the safety cars, so that's why I'm not going to cover them. And they'll be at the very back. So yeah, there you go, guys. That's basically the preview for this Grand Prix weekend in Baku. I'm just going to read out a final few comments and then I'll let you guys know the schedule for Saturday on the channel, which is, as it is normally, just the timings are slightly different compared to most European races. You find some other comments here that I've not read out. Crystal Racing saying, interesting, I've not heard any journos label the Aston as the green Mercedes. Well, that's because it's not, of course, doing as well as it did last year. To be honest, though, I will say I think their struggles are similar to Mercedes of this year, because Mercedes are definitely nowhere near as comfortable with what they have as what they were last year. So I think they are having similar tough times with the balance of their car. Of course, the Mercedes are still in a great position. Other than 2018, Alpine/Renault have always struggled at Baku as well. F1, yep, they have. 2016 and 2017 were abysmal. And then, yeah, 2018 was pretty good. And then 2019 was yet again abysmal. For the team, I think last year, if we had raced here, I think they probably would have ended up with a good result because of the strengths of their car last season. But of course, we didn't race here. Will F1 says his prediction is Verstappen, Bottas, Hamilton, Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz, Norris, Vettel, Stroll, and Giovinazzi for his top 10. Jan Fran says Verstappen has always been greater in the second half of the season. Yeah, I'd say that. I'd say, well, there's a couple factors for that. One, the Red Bull car does tend to be much better towards the end of the season than it is at the start, or the first half of the season, so I think that definitely does play a factor. But I think another thing to mention is that, yes, of course, in the last few seasons, Max has always ended strongly. But he's never been fighting for a championship. It's completely different when you're fighting for a championship compared to when you're not. The pressures are so immense that it can. I mean, look at Sebastian Vettel in 2017 and 2018. When the pressure was on more, he performed less to what his ability is, and Lewis Hamilton would rise more so to the occasion. And that's what I mean. Again, Verstappen, in the last few seasons, yes, he has been good in the back end of the season, but he's never been fighting for a championship. So will that happen again? I don't think we can say, because again, if we get to, say, the Italian Grand Prix, or even, let's say, the Dutch Grand Prix, which is a week after, if he's leading the championship by 30-odd points, but Mercedes have the car that, say, for the last few races is not, say, a bit stronger or massively stronger, but say just about ahead for the last few races, the pressure on Verstappen is going to be absolutely enormous in those final few races, and especially at circuits where Mercedes historically have been so strong. So, again, the pressure, I think that's one thing Max Verstappen, he won't have noticed it so far, really, because, you know, it's only been 5 races and we still don't know if the championship battle is even going to be a proper one where it goes down to the final Grand Prix or final 2 or 3 races of the season. Because, I mean, easily Lewis Hamilton could end up leading by 50 or 60 points say, by the Dutch Grand Prix or Singapore Grand Prix or whatever Grand Prix it is, say during that month of September, Hamilton, again, could easily be leading by that type of margin, and it could be, you know, basically over at that point. But again, if Verstappen is... Again, if he has a 4-point lead even, the pressure is just going to be so big, so big. And I think that's one thing he is going to notice the difference between a normal season fighting for victory and, fighting for victory with a championship on the line. I think he'll notice a massive difference. And it'll be interesting to see whether he can handle that pressure. I think he can handle it better probably than Sebastian Vettel could. But we have seen some cracks along the way already from Verstappen when the pressure or the expectation has been on for him to, say, get pole position and he's not ended up doing so, or get the race win and he's not ended up doing so. So, be very interesting to see what happens once we get later on in the season and whether Max can handle the pressure. I mean, Lewis Hamilton... He's done this so many times. It's basically just another season for him with the pressure and fighting for a championship. He's been fighting for championships for so long. Again, it's nothing new for him. But for Verstappen, it'd be very interesting to see how his performance is when the pressure really ramps up in the final, say, 3 months of the season. Let's find some final comments here, and then we'll get on to the end of the stream. Tonka says, I think Bottas could pull an upset. Definitely possible. Like I said, he's been pretty strong in the last couple editions of this Grand Prix. And I think actually could beat Hamilton legitimately this weekend. So look out for that, because it really could happen. And Hamilton might end up, if Verstappen does win, giving away 10 to 13 points on this Grand Prix. If it goes how I'm expecting. Let me find... I'll read out this final comment from Seirugara, who says, Red Bull developed their car better than Ferrari, so that could potentially be a good sign, plus their pit crew is better. Of course, in reference to, say, Ferrari in 2017/2018 in terms of the differences between that Ferrari group that went for the championship compared to the Red Bull group now. Like I said, and I completely agree with that comment, Red Bull, what they have compared to what Ferrari had is stronger and more formidable. Doesn't mean it's unbeatable. It's very beatable because they're going up against the greatest team, Red Bull, of all time in Mercedes. So just because they look very strong doesn't mean they're going to win at all. But I think Red Bull, it's still very hard to say, honestly, who's going to win the championship. It's so hard to say. Again, only 4 points separating them. All it takes is 1 or 2 races to massively swing it in one driver's favour. It's not all over already like it has been in the last 2 or 3 years, which is good to see. Again, like I said, too close to call. I cannot say right now who's going to win the championship. I can't say at all. I can't even say right now who I think's the favourite. I mean, yeah, Lewis Hamilton's won 7 championships. But if, like I think, with the circuits coming up, if Verstappen and Red Bull can get the most out of what they have, then if they do have a 30-point lead at the summer break, then even then, I wouldn't say it's clear or it's definitely Verstappen is the favourite. It's again, way too close to call. And this season, the reason Verstappen is leading has come down, I think, to the drivers. I think Verstappen has been just a tad better than Lewis Hamilton this season in terms of speed and the race performance. I think Verstappen has been very, very good as well. I mean, yes, he has made a couple mistakes here and there. Lewis Hamilton has as well. But at the minute, like I said, the reason Verstappen is in the lead by 4 points is because he's only just been the better driver. But if it's going to be like that the whole season where whoever's leading the championship is basically down to who is performing better as a driver, then because of how good they both are, it's going to be very close until the very end of the season, which of course is what we want. But guys, that is the end, rather, if I can speak, of this stream. Hopefully you guys have had a good time listening and watching this preview, and hopefully you will join me for the content on Saturday. So the sessions in Baku are an hour earlier than they were in Monaco. So on Saturday morning, I will be live at 9:45 a.m. UK time for the Practice 3 watch along, which of course the session gets underway at 10 a.m. UK time. Then I'll be live again at 12:30 p.m. UK time for the 1 p.m. UK time start for qualifying for the Grand Prix. In Baku. And then I'll be live at 5 p.m. UK time for the race preview for the Grand Prix on Sunday. And then on Sunday, I'll be live at 12:30 p.m. UK time with Nib for the race watch along for the Grand Prix this weekend in Baku. So that is the schedule, guys. And of course, there'll be a race review on Monday night as well at 7 p.m. UK time to go through everything that's happened. So again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for that content coming up bottom right of the screen. You do it right there. Or go to my channel page and hit the notifications bell as well as subscribing. Don't forget to smash the like button. And as well, what was I going to say? I forgot. There you go. Share the stream and channel everywhere you can. And as well, don't forget to join my Discord server. Link below in the description. And I think there'll be a link in the chat as well that Rooksfoot, one of the moderators, will probably be posting right now. Best place that is for the notifications of my videos and streams if you want to tune in as soon as possible. And also, we have almost 500 people on that server, and it's a pretty frequent server. So if you do want to talk motorsport or F1 in general with fellow people, then make sure to join that server and the growing community here on this channel. But guys, until the early start on Saturday morning, it has been me, Chazza HD. Goodbye.